This is one slide deck. It's going to take us through the entire afternoon. Michael's got a presentation, then he's got a panel. We got one more break. We're going to do our lock note conversation amongst some of the folks here, and then Synergy Sky will be their giveaway, and then it's off to the cocktail party, Michael.
And down is up and up is down.
Down is up and up is down.
Excellent.
In this wacky world, everything's opposite.
All right, well, thank you for coming and spend your afternoon with us. And I'm going to do my best to talk about Teams, and some other collaboration platforms that are not called Teams, but let you act and work in Teams. For those of you that, a few hands that don't know me, I've been in the industry just under, I can't believe what I'm saying, it's just under 30 years. So I'm now old. I grew up in the industry. I started on the integration side. I then was fortunate to spend a long time at Crestron. I got exposed to all kinds of neat technology, and I got the benefit to work with some really large enterprise customers. I got to experience enterprise AV before people called it enterprise AV. When you do that and you work at the scale of thousands, you learn a lot of interesting things. There's a lot of challenges, and you realize quickly you need different methods to solve them. One of the things I always enjoyed was helping people. And when I was an integrator, I helped people. When I was at Crestron, I helped people. And I got a really unique opportunity to go back to my roots and again, help people. And sit in my bed every night, which is something I hadn't done for the last 13 years because I was traveling every day. So I joined a consulting firm up in Boston, where my partner. And we're an AV, broadcast, production, telecommunications, UC consultant. At the end of the day, we help people. We do lots of acousticians, but what we really pride ourselves in is listening to our clients and trying to come up with technical solutions to solve their business challenges and help them take technology and turn it into a productivity multiplier. That's what I like to do. It's super fun. I'm fortunate. We've had some great customers, and I look forward to getting to work with many of you in the New York area. I think at this point, does everybody know I am CCA is? We do really, really great educational events and networking opportunities. And if you're an end user and you are not a member, you really should look into joining. And it's really easy. You can find us online. You can reach out to Carol Zelkin, our executive director. You can grab David Danto or Ann Aaron or myself or anybody else on board, and we will all help you get to the right place. So without any further ado, let's talk about a new way to get work done. And I semi-apologize. You notice I'm trying to coordinate multiple things here. I'm not used to standing next to a beautiful video while I'm using it as my preview monitor, so if you see me jumping, that's what I'm doing. But anyways, I think before we talk about technology, we have to talk about what's happening in corporate America or corporate gold, right? Because there are no more boundaries, and we're now communicating with people all over the globe. And over the last 13 years, I mean, I was on phone calls with people in India and Japan and China and all over Europe and all over the US every single day of the week, and I was doing this 7 days a week. So the world shrunk. And the point is the workforce has changed. We now have 4 generations in the workforce. In my company, I have people from all 4 generations, even though I'm a small company. And very quickly you see that people, the older people like me, we work differently. Right? When I got into the workforce, I was on independent study. I was told, here's your assignment, here's what I need you to do, go figure it out, and I would do it. Today, the younger generations that are coming in, they've been trained to work in groups, dare I say teams, and that's how they get things done. And even if you look at large corporations, nowadays, because of the technology that's available, the boundaries are broken. So I used to work with a financial company, and we would be developing room solutions, and there's a person in New York, and there's a person in California, and there's a person in Europe. And the triumvirate is all working together as a team to get things done. The other thing that's really interesting is the way people communicate. Right? So, me, I write emails. That's what I've always done. And almost 2 years ago, I was out in San Francisco, and I was at Twitch. Anybody know what Twitch is? Okay. A lot of young people at Twitch. So I go to a meeting, talk about a new project, and lots of excitement. I leave, I send a follow-up email to talk about action steps, 0 response. Like, this is really strange, so I send another one, 0 response. And I know these guys, so it's not like they didn't like me. I send them a text, instant answer. And the next thing you know, I am managing an entire project using iMessage. And thank God I use a Mac because I could type on a real keyboard. But that's how these guys work. Like, the email in their mind is like the lowest priority. Now, they're using other tools to collaborate, but the point is they're really into messaging. And so that starts to change the way that we all have to work, right? And if you're a technology manufacturer, you're taking notice of this. The other important thing is video. Yes, was it Monday's panel discussion? I think JP Morgan made a comment that we're a video-first culture now. That's been going on the West Coast for a long time, and the younger generation does everything on video. People send video messages, people post video on social media. It's no big deal. In fact, on the upside, if you look at some of the financials, they're starting to develop strategies for pervasive video, right? Because there are people that would far rather be able to see you and hear you, even if the quality isn't perfect high def, but they can get you immediately. Right, so again, these are starting to change the way that we work, and we're putting demands, but we're asking not directly to the technology manufacturers. The other thing that's different is the workplace. And I'm sure everybody, we could talk for hours on this, but couple of quick takeaways. The workplace may be completely virtual now, right? People work from their home, they work from Starbucks, they work from the airport, they work from a desk that's not there. It almost doesn't matter. The reality is that many of us are now mobile, and the workplace needs to adapt to mobile people. And that's had a major impact on technology, a major driving force. And if you look at the state of technology in our hands, what is it? Well, people were talking about this being a cell phone the other day. All I know is one day I started getting messages on Sunday. Like analytics, screen time. Anybody else here gotten that message? When you look at the message and it gives you your analytics, how much time do you actually spend using this as a phone? Because I can tell you where I spend my time on. It's all apps. Right? That's where I spend my time. This is a computer. My iPad's a computer. My laptop's a computer. And the power in these things is through the roof. They're more powerful than permanent built-in video rooms from years ago. So the manufacturers are kind of taking notice of this. They're seeing the new generations. They're seeing how people work. They're seeing the shift in the office space. They're seeing how much bandwidth and connectivity there is today. And they're saying, how do we take our products and turn our products into productivity multipliers? Because that's why people buy technology. When companies invest in technology to help advance either the academic process that is at school or the business process, they want to accomplish more work in a shorter amount of time. That's why they buy technology. So the software people are trying to stay on top of it, and they're trying to grow onto these new mobile platforms. So the service providers and software providers, they're looking at this and they're saying, well, what do people do during the day? They write an awful lot of emails. They chat with people. They make phone calls. They make video calls. So let me ask you a question. Do a lot of people, I'm a heavy email user. Do people use heavy email a lot here still? Anybody here have to manage projects using email? So, okay, so in my world, I have to have folders for every project, and in those folders I have email boxes. And I can't have automated rules because I have some of the same people on multiple projects. So I waste a good 40 minutes to an hour every morning just sifting and sorting and going through the messages and making sure the right things get to the right place. Okay? That's a huge, huge deal. So the problem with that is something called contextual switching. Has anybody heard that term? It's like multitasking. Right? And when people, it's a fancy word, but basically, if you sit in your office and you're doing work and you're writing a report and you're really focused on something, an employee walks in, hey, I want to have a conversation. They break your train of thought. You start talking about whatever it is. You finish the conversation, they walk away, you go back to that report, and what happens? You don't go back to the same spot. You got to back up a bit, and you've got to re-immerse yourself. So those collaboration developers, those software platforms that you saw on the previous slide, those guys are thinking about how can we further remove distraction. And it seems like everybody's latched onto this concept of let's keep you in one place. Because switching in and out of different applications on your computer or your mobile device is no different than the person that interrupts your conversation. It's no different than bad multitasking or contextual switching. Right, so there's a big push, and the value in it is how do we help you be more productive? And that's why there's all this hubbub going on. And I'm going to drop myself in here as well. And not my story from what I do at CDA. I own a business. You guys all work at businesses. And what are you trying to do? Many of you are tasked with how do we help our people communicate? How do we help our people share information? So I walked into a company, mine, and I said, okay, we have people that walk from one end of the building to the other end of the building to talk with one another internally. And they waste an awful lot of time doing it. We could so easily just tell people at their desk if they're in a meeting or not in a meeting without even moving or leaving their work. Right? We have another problem. And it's a good problem with a lot of customers. Our customers are now in multiple cities and multiple states. And they're asking us to help them develop solutions for property that they may have bought in another location. So how do you do that without travel? Because nobody wants to travel every day. So enter collaboration software. Maybe we can spin up work groups. I'm using that kind of generic term at the moment. Let's spin up work groups so that everyone can meet in one place and everyone can share documents. Right? So one of my clients asked me to help them on a project in Atlanta. They sent me a link into their Teams, Microsoft Teams. I was able to access every bit of information about that project. You can imagine they have OneNote notebooks. Does anybody know what OneNote is? Okay, OneNote notebooks with weekly meetings, every construction project meeting. They have renderings, drawings, pictures, and stuff. Anything you could ever imagine right there. So before I flew down to Atlanta, I pulled all that stuff down on my machine. I looked at it. I got off the plane. It was an early morning flight, and I wanted to check a few more details before I got to the site. It was a loud space, and you needed to hear it. There was some acoustical challenges. But it was on my phone. I went into Teams, pulled up some renderings in space. I got off the train, walked into a meeting, and we had a very productive session. Throughout the course of the meeting, I was able to take notes. All that stuff goes back up to the cloud. Right? So that's pretty cool. The problem is nobody else in my company knows how to work that way. And we have some tools, but people say they don't work. So I'm just like you. I'm trying to figure out, do I have the right tools? Should I be buying something else? What do I need to do? And it's a big problem. So David was nice enough to include me in this event. And I said, okay, well, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. So I dove into the sea of information. There are more collaboration platforms out there than I can tell you. And there's more information, and there's lots of false information, and there's lots of hype. I can tell you this. At the end of my search, I came up with three. Three that I thought were worth it. Two are called Teams and one not. So in no particular order. So originally I was going to call this Teams, and someone who didn't want to call himself Teams, but he is. Slack, Microsoft Teams, and Cisco WebEx Teams. No confusion. So I dug into that. And once I dug into those three, I started capturing information. I started learning about them. I said to myself, what's this daily active user thing? Have anyone heard that term, daily active users? Okay. Daily active users is a really interesting term. It's a really interesting concept. What is it? It's supposed to be a measure of how many people are logging into an application that's on a computer or a mobile device every day. That's what it's supposed to be. It's morphed. It makes a lot of sense in the consumer world. The problem is the media can greatly influence it. To me, honestly, it seems like a Wall Street thing. Right? So if you were to start digging and find information about who's better, go ask Google who's better, Slack or Microsoft Teams, and you're probably going to get a chart like this. What influences this? You're going to see links to CNBC and Wall Street Journal stories. Here's what I can tell you. I don't think that because Microsoft got a link and now they're boasting 20 million users, I wouldn't look at that and say, oh, that's got to be the right platform. I should just go buy it. Right? What I would say is this. They're both above 10 million. 10 million is a pretty good number, right? So directionally, both of those companies are probably doing something right and they're probably worth investigating. But this is a really personal choice because it's about how I work and how my teammates work. And I can't make that decision based on what's the best in the market. I have to make that decision based on what's best for the company. And that varies from place to place. The other reason, kind of for all the hype, is this. You'll hear people quoting upwards of $45 billion at stake. Right? And no manufacturer or software provider wants to get locked out of that. And what you're going to see quickly is that they don't make one product, they make multiple products. And those products all weave themselves in together. Right? So people are really concerned about, oh my gosh, what if they choose this? What does it do to the rest of my business? You look like you're not.
Yeah, no, I was falling off there because there was one point that you didn't make that I think you should make. That I'm sorry, the definition of an active user is part of the controversy. So whichever platform you're on is going to define what an active user is. Like if I open up my computer and the platform is sitting there, do I consider that an active user of my platform? Well, one of the providers does.
Microsoft does.
I didn't say that. I said one of the providers.
Do you want me to tell you the other one?
Well, you guys can work on that. The point is, you've got to, it's all a question of semantics. It depends what you mean by it.
Right.
That's an important thing you're discerning.
Well, I'll say one other word on the it. The other one talks about deep engagement. Right? So they talk about 90 minutes or more. Here's the thing at the end of the day. Those daily active users don't give you any actionable information. They just give you a barometer reading. Right? So at the end of the day, the people that are making these products, what they really need to figure out is what makes them sticky. Because if they're sticky and they're adopted, then they're going to keep making sales. And if it's pure curiosity factor, they're going to turn up, they're going to log into it 3 times, they're going to be done with it. So mind you, I'm on a time window here. So I'm going to keep it fairly high level. The first one to talk about is Slack. Right? So Slack does everything you'd expect it to do. Right? It lets me chat and message with people. It lets me share documents. It lets me make audio and video calls. But what's their messaging and what's their focus? Their focus and their messaging really is about 2 things. They talk about bringing people together and unifying systems and bringing you to one place, that central communication hub, if you will, to try and reduce distraction. The other thing they talk about is getting rid of internal email. Right, so they're, within Slack, if you use it, they use channels to manage all the communications, the documents, and all that good stuff. And so messages get fed into channels, whether they're public or private. And then within those channels, you can search for things. So I go back to my email example. When I'm searching folders in my email, it can take forever because I have a lot of emails and I'm looking for a file, and maybe someone replied to an email for a specific thread and then they decided to start a new concept in an old thread, and it's a mess, right? It's really ineffective. And Slack gets around that problem. So Slack is really good at searching for things. You know what else Slack is really neat about? If I'm an executive or someone in the communications department and I put out a message to the company, I can actually get feedback on that. Think about it, because people within Slack can like your posts. Right? They give you a thumbs up. I don't know if anyone give you a thumbs down or not, because you can tell who did it, but I can comment. And I can give you reaction. If I send an email to everybody in my company to talk about how are we into the year or whatever happened at the trade show, I have no clue how a message was received. And they might not think that's such a big deal. But here's something that's kind of interesting. If you look at why companies struggle to grow, it's usually not competition. The greatest challenges to a company growing are internal challenges. And one of those internal challenges is sentiment and morale and how people feel and how they communicate. So this gives management a barometer as to what's going on. So I think that's kind of cool. When I look at the audio and video, sure, they've got an audio video client. I don't know anybody that uses it, but you know what is really cool? It's super easy to integrate almost any app that you want into Slack. Right? So I have a really good client, a good friend of mine, we talk about technology all the time, and he absolutely loves Slack because he can get, in his mind, the best for his company based on the way that they work. He's got software developers, they love Slack. He loves to use Zoom for video calling. Great, easy to integrate Zoom in. So he can pick and choose and build what he likes because Slack has a huge, huge inventory of available apps that you can connect in. And if there's not an app for it, they've got APIs. And if you know what you're doing, you can take the APIs and can take advantage of that. Let's go a step further. And I don't want this to be an ad for Slack because I'm going to do the same thing for Microsoft Teams and Cisco WebEx Teams. But workflow. Right? So the other thing that they've done is they've taken a good look at how we can help you cut out waste of time in the day answering simple emails. You know, you get a new employee, they're getting onboarded, you bring them into a communication channel. Do you really have to have a person explain to them how to use this? That can all be automated. And what's neat is Slack has a tool called Workflow Builder that basically provides you templates that you can modify, and very quickly you can go from a template to a published workflow. So these are little to no code type of feature sets. If I were to wrap this whole thing up, I'm on the left. My customers from Crestron, they're still my customers today. They work for very large global management consulting firms, very large IT management consulting firms, and technology firms, as well as finance. And so I reach out and talk with them just about technology, the art possible, what do they think, what's happening in their world. It helps keep me looking forward enough to bring good advice and information back to my clients. And what I heard is the following about Slack. Everybody that I asked likes it. It's not adopted company-wide. In most of the places that I've spoken of, these are large companies, they all tended to say people in the tech aren't love it. The software developers love it. Marketing people like it for some things, but they're not using it to truly document share, right? And I'm surprised you didn't interrupt me when I glossed over this, but document sharing is one of these important things. So I could take and create a message and put it up there with an attachment, send it to all you guys in the channel, you could look at it, and you could say you like it, don't like it, you could read and comment on it. But out of the box, what you're not doing is going into that application and editing that Word document and giving me direct feedback. We can't co-author, right? And so that could be seen as a weakness to some. Now there's a way around it, right? You can certainly add, you can integrate OneDrive or SharePoint and O365, and you integrate all that stuff in, and now you get co-authoring. And that's good if that suits the way your company works. But remember, there's a cost to it, both to buy the apps and services as well as software. So that's one of the things you need to think about. The other thing that's really powerful about this is when you get away from placing email, the ability to have the barometer, right? How things are going in the company. Do I need to change the tone and tenor in which I communicate with people? That's another really popular feature. And then the other piece of it is the apps. There are people that are set in their ways and they want to use 3 different things and they want to stitch them together and keep people in one portal, and that's where they find the greatest value. So me, when I looked at this, I thought it makes a lot of sense in some regards, and I could see about half of my company living really successfully and doing a good job with Slack and integrating Zoom video for it, because that's what they like. And I will tell you that everybody I spoke with is using multiple platforms, and even though I'm a small business, I have a feeling I'm going to be there as well. I just want to be careful when I make that decision, because at the end of the day, I have to support it. The next one is Microsoft Teams. So I will tell you out of the gate, I am a Microsoft. We are a Microsoft shop, right? So we sell 365, Teams, we bought in the whole 9 yards. Why? Because it's got everything all in one, and I don't have to do a lot to it. Now, if you get into some deep conversation about best in breed or best in suit out, people are going to find flaw with this. But I have people that are just trying to get work done, and if you're looking for something that you can spin up in a fairly vanilla instance with not a lot of work, it's pretty productive to me, right? It's very powerful. It does a lot of things like this, right? It allows me to have groups to share information. It allows me to have channels for messaging and document sharing. But because the back end is SharePoint, and because it's O365 as well, I now get the ability to co-author. So just last week I was working on a project. We were writing a spec, me, myself, and a coworker, and we just did the whole thing together in Teams using Word online. And that was really, really cool. I didn't have to get up and leave my office, and in about half the time I wound up with a finished product. So that was very successful. The other interesting thing here is, yes, they have an audio video client. It does a pretty good job. But Teams also has a room or a meeting strategy, and that's not something that really jumped off the page for me within Slack. Right? So Microsoft knows people spend a lot of time in meetings, and one of the goals is how do you make that meeting process better? The whole thing, and how do you make it more efficient? So they've tried to do a very good job using their tools in this fully integrated environment to make it easy to start a conversation, escalate to a meeting, or schedule a meeting, allow you to share documents, mark them up, and have everything remain persistent, hang up, get off that meeting, come back to it, ask questions back to it, all tracking in the channel. They also have a room strategy that says, gee, if you're not at your desk, we can give you a conference room system that gives you a very similar experience to what you have at your desk. It's one touch to join. Now, on the root strategy, they use third parties. So Microsoft's not building the system, they're building the software and the experience, and they're going to certified partners, and they've got a predefined ecosystem. And so there's a lot of choice. If you're a user, you can pick the manufacturer you like, you get the same experience, they're compatible, and life is good. Right? It's based on PCs, although I think you're going to start to see appliances coming back into that realm. But I think that's a strong point on the Microsoft side. The other piece is AI. I'm not going to get really deep into this, just again, based on time, but they have something called Cortana, which is an assistant, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And 2 years ago, Microsoft did this event at, I think it was a Build conference, and they were showing it from the possible. They were showing Cortana integration with Teams. And yes, it was staged. But the promise of what they showed was incredible, right? It started with a group of people having a conversation that then quickly said, all together, hey, we need a meeting. Cortana, find me a meeting space. Send a meeting invite. Cortana did it. The people walked into the room. They invited people to join remotely via Teams. One touch, they launched, we're in a meeting, we're talking, having a conversation. They happen to have two displays, one for people, one for content. All of a sudden, the content display started turning into a transcription, and you were seeing Cortana taking notes. But the really cool thing, we were talking about this earlier, was not just taking notes. It's that Cortana was smart enough to understand that their action items being assigned. So if I asked Bill to take care of 3 things, all of a sudden there's this action item system that was identifying the things that they're going to do. Right? And that's a big deal, because how many of you have been in meetings where you need to manage the people, present your content, and take notes about feedback on what's happening? That's really hard. So, there's a lot of talk about AI this week. There's a lot of talk about AI in general. When I think about AI, those are the types of capabilities that I'm really after. Not to minimize AI and giving you better audio in the room by reducing noise and things like that. Sure, that's helpful, but I think where AI becomes really powerful is when it truly becomes an assistant and it takes work off of my plate. Right? And that is where Microsoft is heading. And part of it is they have all the back end, they have all the productivity tools. So it's going to be easier for them than maybe some others. And they do workflows too. And if you search around, you're going to see this no-code, low-code workflow builder. So Microsoft, as I mentioned, they use SharePoint in the back end. They also have an application called Flow. And those two things behind the scenes of Teams will let you go ahead and create workflows. So I don't know, maybe I need to file incident reports or create travel forms or things of that nature, just like in Slack, and I don't want to keep doing these things repetitively. I can go ahead, build out that workflow and publish it, and now all of a sudden I can reduce the amount of everyday tasks that kind of waste my time because mine coming. So that brings us down to sort of the recap. Back to the people that I talk with, their perspective first. These large companies, the number one thing that I hear is the majority of them are using this, some capacity in Teams. The executives really like it. It's easy. It's easy for them. People like the ability to easily add things like OneNote and share the notes. I do have clients that I've spoken to that have legacy Cisco environments, and in some cases they're actually using Cisco for the video, and they're using Teams for chat and document sharing. And why? Because that's where they started way back in the day of Link. Right? A lot of people use Link, and then Skype just for presence on my own. And there's still that mindset. It's very easy to roll that forward. Although more and more I'm seeing people say the benefits that you get out of everything in O365 and everything under the Microsoft umbrella make it easier for them. It doesn't mean it's a better technical solution, but it makes it easier. And easier relates to support and cost and upkeep, and more importantly, training and adoption. Right? Because if you can't make it sticky, it's a waste of time. From my perspective, I like the platform. When I showed up at my company on day one, I heard a lot of complaints about it. The more time that I spent there, I realized people didn't know how to use it. So one of the things I've noticed over the years, even back in the restaurant days, Skype is fairly easy to use, and Teams is fairly easy to use. And that means that in a lot of instances, we don't take the time to train people. And we just push this application out to them, and we kind of give them the keys to the kingdom, and we say, have at it. And we assume that because we know how to use it, that they know how to use it. And because they don't know how to use it or they get lost in the interface, it now doesn't work. And now they want something else. So I would say a very important piece if you're going to go down this path is training and a plan to roll that out in small groups and make sure that people are comfortable and understand how to use it. If they do, I think that you'll find people latch onto it. Other big comment, even though I'm a Microsoft shop, and even though I believe personally in Teams, I'm probably going to run a second platform, as I mentioned. Right? So the next one that I'm going to look at, I'm going to investigate Slack and Zoom together. Right? Because they have different people doing different job functions. Home stretch. Cisco WebEx Teams. Anybody go out and ask Google for information about this? I mean, I use the product, right? But I was looking for technical documentation and need to remember it's Spark. And I'll come back to that. Cisco's a great product. It really is. I mean, when it comes to audio and video, that's their strong point. Right? Microsoft's, I think the strongest part of Microsoft is the O365 integration, document sharing, and all the interwoven goodness. I think when I look at Cisco, the number one thing that I see is the audio and video meetings. Can it do the other things? Yes, it can. Cisco Teams let you do just like Microsoft Teams and Slack. I get instant message, I can chat with people, I can share documents, I can get their opinions on it. All that good stuff, I can even build workflows. But I think their real strength is on the audio and video side, which then gets boiled down to Cisco WebEx meetings. As I mentioned, Cisco, you can build on their platform. They've got a pretty strong, robust development area. They don't have as many apps as Slack. I don't know if they have as many apps as Microsoft, but they're close, but it is available. Cisco's also spending a fair amount of time working on AI and looking to bring AI type features into that environment. And we were having a conversation earlier here about, you know, if you really want, Cisco will put you in a place where when you walk in the room, the system recognizes you, knows it's you, asks you where you want the meeting. You want to do it here or somewhere else. If you really want it, it'll pull up and it'll give you information about people's profiles. Now, I will say to you that I've asked a few people in the financial world about that, and you know, they have some security concerns. You know, I'm not a security expert. I can tell you that anytime you start piping stuff out to the cloud, certain bits of information, having to analyze them for it to come back, especially things that are being recorded, that can be a concern. So one of the things I warn you as if you're a large company, doesn't matter how cool the feature sets are, you need to make sure you understand what happens with security and compliance. Because they can take all these wonderful ideas and some of the, in fact, some of the drivers behind a platform you may want, they could have policies in place that would restrict it, and then you know, it's all for naught. So security and compliance is a really big deal. This is not against Cisco. This is just a general comment. One of the neat things that I came across at Cisco. So Cisco also talk about contextual switching. They have something called cognitive collaboration. That's what they call it. And that's basically mixing in AI and also keeping you focused and keeping the distractions out. So this screenshot happens to be a widget that they developed to work with Salesforce. And we're looking at the Salesforce Lightning interface. And I think that there was a realization there that some people are going to spend their day in Salesforce and not spend their day inside of Cisco WebEx Teams. So they built this widget that will allow you from Salesforce to actually be able to very quickly spin up an audio video call or maybe even grab a document. So again, it's really all about helping people be productive and minimize distraction. I'll tell you that both Slack and Microsoft also have integrations with Salesforce. They're different, but this really kind of caught my eye. When I get into the reaction from the field and I talk to my customers, the one thing they say about Cisco is the best audio video. Their words, not mine. Cisco also has a very strong room strategy, and that room strategy is based on purpose-built hardware. There's great support. You pay for it, but you get what you pay for. Right? So I have clients that have very, very large Cisco networks. Simple rooms to sophisticated rooms are now almost off-the-shelf type systems that are very easy and fast to spin up. They provide a consistent experience, and people find it easy to use. So if I'm someone who really cares about video conferencing, I may look towards Cisco because I think that's probably their greatest strength. From my own perspective, I'll tell you that yes, I think the video is great, I think the support's great, again, you pay for it. I personally have a little bit of challenge with the whole swing to Spark to back to Teams. And my issue with it is I'm looking for technical documentation and there's a lot of inconsistencies. I think years ago when they went down the Spark path, they made some major changes, and that affected some of my clients' meeting spaces. And the client had no input on it, right? So, in other words, rooms were set up to work one way, and if the client kept the firmware up to date, all of a sudden some of the capabilities that they had no longer work, which put them in a bind. And it really scared them. Now, granted, that's been reversed. Okay, there was an about face. However, just step back and you go, well, what's the strategy? Right? So there's been a lot of changes. We're changing leadership, there's been changes in strategy, and that can be a little scary for thinking about how do I build out my enterprise, because I don't want to be beholden to anyone. Right? So that's the one caution or caveat I have. I think they're a great company. It's just a concern. So we're not the only people that are talking about this. Are people here on LinkedIn? Okay. At the beginning of the week, we were at BlackRock on Monday, and there's a guy named Richard Leon. Does anybody know Richard? Just out of curiosity? All right. So Richard, I met Richard, I think back at BlackRock in San Francisco. Richard works for VMware, and he is all about providing the best collaboration experience possible. And he's very open to being on the bleeding edge. He's been, he can lay claim to be the first of many different initiatives, right? I worked with him years ago at Juniper on a very large link room / Skype room initiative. Richard was one of the first people to put in very large-scale campus-wide AV over IP deployments years ago. He knew he was going to have some bumps, right? But that's okay. That's how he advances things. And so Richard is also a technologist, and he wrote this really excellent article about collaboration and really about customer experience and employee experience by removing friction. And friction's a big word out west. People like to talk about having frictionless meetings. So Richard happens to be a Slack user, he happens to be a Zoom user, he's also a Teams user. But, you know, he spent a lot of time looking at how people at VMware work. And he spent a lot of time looking at their strategy, listening to CIO, and from that, he came up with a really interesting solution for their rooms. And so their rooms are super easy to use, they're really fast to deploy, they're self-healing, right? They take advantage of AI, they're doing a lot of the things that people are talking about here. And so Richard put this article up, and you can certainly search for it. And as much as it is about his article, he really wanted to spark conversation. And so there's a fantastic set of threads. In fact, our comments on it just got updated yesterday. And one of the comments that came up yesterday was, you know, do you really want best of breed or do you want best of suit? And that was by someone from Intuit. And they went on, and I'm just trying to sort of, I didn't want to put every comment up here, and I wasn't trying to draw too much attention to anyone other than Richard. But the point is, if you just look at this list of comments and conversation, you'll see everybody's in the same boat, right? There's nothing unique to it. And I think the biggest issue with all this is, far too often, we look at the technology for the solution, and we look at the features that the technology have, but sometimes we forget about the company's strategy. And so I think you kind of have to back up, right? And you need to back up and pull yourself out of it and say, forget about which version of Teams or Slack or whatever. What's our strategy? What matters to the company? Who are the people that are working in the company? How do we communicate? Is it internal? Is it external? What are the challenges that we're trying to solve? Right? How do we collaborate? Oh, do we have security considerations? Right? Am I actually going to be able to pull off what I want to do with one of these platforms? Who's going to manage them? What's our budget for support? If we use multiple platforms, how much development time do we give to each of them? And last but certainly not least, how about change management? Right? Because that seems to get forgotten in a lot of places. So I would tell you that these, you know, and there's no silver bullet to this, but these are really important considerations, almost more important than what feature set Microsoft Teams or Cisco WebEx Teams has. I would start here, right? And I would start to lay out that plan. And I know this is sort of anticlimactic because I'm sure that somebody, when they saw this, wanted to get up here and say, this one is the best, or this one's the worst. The reality is they're all good. They each have their strength, they each have their specialty. So I think it's important to understand that. If you can build a strategy around what's important to the company and how you're going to communicate, and how do people take to technology, and what's the plan look like when I roll this out, so that it becomes sticky. If you address those questions first, then you can go back and start looking at the platforms. And interestingly enough, I never talked to this in time, but I think I was like within 2 minutes of when this ends because I got the magic wave from the back of the room. Yes?
One question. I think I heard you earlier, if I heard you correctly, say something about...
Hold on just 1 second. Let's,
Oh, sorry, microphone.
Oh. Only because we're recording and it won't make any sense.
Yes, if I heard you correctly earlier, you mentioned a room that was self-healing.
Yeah.
Would you mind elaborating on that?
So the room is also, the room is self-configured, right, all through scripting. Then they run tests off hours against it, again, all through scripting, based on triggers that come back. On something being on or offline or a particular condition. Then they have other, they have software platforms that run other scripts against it and start to deal with the problem. Now, you can't self-heal something that physically breaks.
Are you describing AV as a service?
I'm not describing AV as a service.
Okay.
Let me also say that AV as a service, I'm still waiting for a really good definition because but let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because every time I hear AV as a service, what I really hear is, hey, how about we just pay you every month and you drop off some gear and it works. Maybe it's a service plan, right? But you know, so it gets deep, so I don't want to misinterpret what you're saying. I think fundamentally this particular company is working to get to that.
Okay.
But it's not really AV. I'd say for them it's more about collaboration as a service and trying to keep things flowing with as little retraining, with as little downtime as possible, right? Because they're an IT service provider, right? If you think about this, most AV rooms have physical widgets that I install in a room. How cool is it if the room's virtual? Right? Like the more things that are on the network and the more things that are consumer-based and the more things that are virtual, well, that scares the heck out of some people. The flip side to that is I have unbelievable redundancy and I can have failover and I can spin replacements up really quick.
And incredible administration as well. But the healing, is it prompted by a human person or pre-programmed?
Pre-programmed.
Okay.
So there's pre-programmed actions that are run against it, although, you know, I haven't asked too much about the human side, but I'll tell you what, if you ping me, like on LinkedIn,
Right.
I'll get you more detail.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it seems like it's DevOps, very DevOps.
Well, no,
It sounds like there's an element of DevOps in there. But then I think different solution providers right now, as we speak, are doing it different ways. There's a lot of experimenting going on. AV as a service has different interpretations. I was trying to get his take.
So I will tell you this, this started, I think 2 years ago when Alexa first came on the scene, right? And these guys came to me and said, can you help me integrate Alexa into our system because we want voice activated conferencing systems. And this is before, you know, it was really integrated in AV technology. So I was in my old life at Crestron and I got a developer who needs some back-end code. We made that work. But one big difference, the people that we're working with, they have software developers, so they can do some of this on their own, right? This is not off-the-shelf AV.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions before we start the panel? Anyone?
There's some additional good news. We can carry some of this over into the panel discussion, by the way, because the discussions were really just a continuation of this deck. All right. I think it's working.